Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for coming to this special occasion today. I'd like to now, it's not on?
It's on. It's on. Louder. Stand up.
I've only been listening to that for 70 years. How's that? Okay, good. Okay, we got one more person, but while he's coming in, I'd like to turn it over to Don Shepard, who's going to provide the invocation. Don.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask that you bow our heads in a moment of prayer. Lord, we gather here today in a memorial of the fallen. We ask your blessing for those honored on this plaque and for their families, friends, and classmates. Their loss was not in vain. They were doing what they loved, flying fighters for their country. It is sad that they are gone, but as we touch the names on this plaque today, they are with us once again, young, smiling, and laughing. We see their faces, hear their voices. They are not forgotten. Lord, we ask your blessing once again for all who serve, and as the lyrics of the great Air Force hymn say, Lord, guard and guide the men and now women who fly through the great spaces of the sky. Be with them traversing the air in darkening storm and sunshine fair. In your name, and for those we honor on this plaque, and others who have passed serving our nation. Amen.
I'm not going to use the script that Roger put in here because I changed it significantly since last night. But I really didn't. I just had to pick a few times. It's a privilege and honor to be able to serve as your Master of Ceremonies for this historic event. A tremendous crowd. And Nancy, my wife, and I will treasure the experience forever. Welcome to today's ceremony. I'm going to serve as your Master of Ceremonies, where the F-100 Super Sabre Society will unveil a plaque. And some of you that are sitting next to the wall, when we get to that dedication thing, may have to move back here and stand up so you can see it because it's on the lower level of the plaques there. We're going to unveil a bronze plaque honoring the over 1,500 pilots who flew the Hun in peace and war. And I would have said men and women, but there wasn't any women around to fly the Hun at that time, excuse me. So we'll make up for that in future airplanes. Of those 1,500 or more, 88 pilots gave their lives in the Vietnam conflict. And specifically, we're going to recognize the 11 that Air Force Academy graduates who didn't return to their family. You might wonder what the Super Sabre or who the Super Sabre Society is. It is a society that's dedicated to preserve the legacy of the F-100 pilot. In that regard, we have developed initiatives that, like the plaque that we're going to see today, and also other locations, we imported or placed a similar plaque at Nellis Air Force Base. We have an exhibit at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., and we're a society of the last men standing, similar to Doolittle's Raiders organization. In other words, when we're all gone, and boy, they're dropping by flies every day, we get an email and says so-and-so, in fact, I just got one yesterday, Bobby Gobble passed away, and he was a good friend of mine. And so that's the legacy mission. We didn't opt to go down the path of the Dedalians or river rats. We stayed singular in the objective of preserving and protecting and defending the legacy of the F-100. If you're interested in the Super Sabre Society, I encourage you to all Google it. Google Super Sabre Society and review the bios of over 1,000 people that are already been developed, and look at the magazines, almost 40 of them that have been published since the beginning of the society. And so anyway, that's what our mission is. Our mission is to protect and defend and preserve the legacy of the F-100. I want to especially thank Don Shepard, the former president of our society, who in all rights set our society right after it had fluxed so much. And we're deeply grateful to all the efforts that you have done to do that. His meaningful remarks, and he flew 247 sorties in Vietnam, and 58 of them were Misty sorties, so he's a fast fact in addition to, and they have a Misty plaque here too, so take a look at that when you get a chance. I'm Ed Bracken, an honorary 59er. I'm not ROTC puke, so I can't wear your Air Force stuff, but I love the cadets. My wife and I sponsor, last year we had 6, and all 4 of them went to pilot training. That was a great achievement, because some of them, when they come in, they weren't interested in flying, but I and Nancy convinced them that they should do that. Can you hear me? Up. Okay. The first order of business is to recognize those family members of the fallen who have joined us today. Mrs. Kristen Caston and her husband, Russell Shaw, traveled from California to be with us today, and Kristen's dad, Captain Michael Hyde, is enshrined on the plaque. So welcome, and Tom will have some more to say about you all. Major Lee Gurley's wife, Lizane, and if I didn't say that right, throw a rock at me. Did I?
Sister Elsie. Okay.
And 1 or 2 of the brothers, Fred and his wife Chris, have joined us for the unveiling today. So welcome. Captain Clarence Hemmel's son, Joe, and his wife Kelly are also with us this afternoon. And we want to welcome them as special guests and everything. There are other dignitaries in the audience who have joined us on this special day, and please hold your applause until everyone has been recognized. General Brigadier Linnell Latendry is a distinguished graduate in 1966 of the Air Force Academy, and is the 11th Dean of Faculty at the United States Air Force Academy. That's great news. Brigadier General Paul Moga, the 30th Commandant of Cadets at the United States Air Force Academy. Paul has flown F-15s, F-22s, and F-35s, and that's a tremendous achievement of your own. Too bad you didn't fly the 100.
Still time, right?
General Moga has brought with him a number of upper-class cadets who we welcome the class of 2025 into the cadets wing here shortly, within the next week, I guess, or so. And when they're processing later in this month. The Association of Graduates and Foundation CEO Mike Gould is traveling in business, and he was an Academy graduate and a football player. We welcome his two chief operating officers, Marty Marceloni, class of 88, or 88, excuse me. I pronounced that and hamburgered it up, but you'll forgive me, okay? And Mark Hill, class of 97 for the Air Force Academy Foundation, representing Mike today. Jim Nance, who's not here today. He should be, but he's got back problems like I do and couldn't make the trip. He's class of 71, who's a sculptor for all of the plaques that you see. The POW base relief and Captain Lance C. John life-size sculptures behind me. Of note, while on active duty, Jim flew one of the C-141s when they went into Hanoi to bring our POWs back. 2 other folks I would like to honor are Major General Larry Fortner, and I don't know where he is. Stand up, Larry. He's not here. He is here. I saw him. And Colonel retired Max Miller. They're 59ers, who are my truest friends and have taught me a lot about the Air Force Academy, and I appreciate your attendance being here. Finally, not without vote of thanks for all that he has accomplished, and I really mean I can't say enough about him. He's been in the trenches, and we started this thing over 2 years ago. He herded a bunch of cats who couldn't figure out what we wanted to say in a plaque, and he finally brought some discipline to that. And Roger, we'll never be able to commend you enough for the job that you did. He was a 67 Air Force Academy graduate. Thank you all for making your presence special for us today. Before I turn the podium over to Major General retired Tom Griffith, who is our president, I want to cover a few things that talk about the location you're in and the trail down here, because it's important, I think, to the Academy, the cadets that are going to come in and have been here, as a part of the legacy that you also share. The Southeast Asia Memorial Pavilion in this setting, the Plaza of Heroes, is special to all Academy graduates. Many Academy classes have made contributions to promote the heritage of Academy graduates. There are 4 classes that I want to mention today that contributed significantly to this endeavor. The class of '59 funded the challenge bridge that leads to the Heritage Trail. Modeled after the famous bridge at the Augusta National Golf Course, there is a challenge to each cadet who enters the Academy. As an aside, from '95 until 2018, in-crossing was accomplished in Doolittle Hall, and each appointee was escorted over the challenge bridge and through the portions of the trail prior to boarding buses which transported them to the Academy. Now, during summer training, each basic cadet tours Heritage Trail led by an upperclassman. I'm going to say something here that, as an honorary 59er, I should say it, and I hear it from a lot of the cadets that we sponsor, in their disappointment in the change of this change that we now follow. Just a note, it's a side note on the procedural changes outlined above. I personally believe, my personal belief, that this long-held tradition in escorting each cadet over the bridge before his transport to the Academy is a tradition that should be restored, and I would encourage the Commandant and the Dean to take a look at that, because I think it's important for these cadets when they step onto this Academy that this area here is the introduction to the Air Force Academy and teaches them what it's all about, I think, and I think that would help, I think, a lot. That's my opinion. I don't know how many of you share that, offer that. If you don't think it's any good, then you can take my honorary 59 patch away. The plans of Class 59 to each entering cadet, the path to which you aspire has been consecrated by the blood of heroes and paved with the selfless sacrifice of countless men and women like you, if you would be worthy of this heritage. And they take a pledge. Make integrity the bedrock of your life. Let your actions, as always, be guided by unshakable sense of duty, self-discipline, and personal responsibility. Become a lifelong student of history, humanity, war, and leadership. And be prepared to sacrifice everything you need to defend the principles upon which our nation was founded. Cross the bridge with that determination to live a life that will make all who went before you proud of you. And that's what I think is missing from the way you do it now. But that's, again, my personal opinion. I guess I'm alone in that thing. The class of '60 was instrumental in proposing and finding the Heritage Trail, which comes down from the bridge, to honor graduates' accomplishments both in and out of service. Classes can make proposals to the Association of Graduates for specific projects along the trail, and you've seen some of them on the pylons coming in. When approved, classes made the necessary funds to complete the project. The BOW bronze bas-relief on the east side of the pavilion was led by a 1960 class. It depicts the names and dates for the 33 Academy graduates who spent time as guests of the North Vietnamese in their prison camps. Captain Lance Sejohn's name, class of 65, is on the medal of one of the 33 POWs. He is the only graduate to be awarded the Medal of Honor. I'll say something more about this in another plaque for him. The class of 70 has been instrumental in all aspects of the Southeast Asia layout. They funded and built a replica of the memorial wall that is located behind the flagpole on the terrazzo. Both of these walls contain the names of all graduates killed during the combat operation. For the 40th Reunion 70 class, built and gifted to the Associated Graduates of Southeast Asia Memorial Pavilion, as you see it here, to honor all graduates who fought in the war through the period 65 through 75. Of note, there are 14 bronze class plaques listing the names of those who died in the war. There are 150 names on these 14 plaques. These 150 graduates' names are on the two black memorial walls on the memorial. For the 45th reunion, and in concert with the class of 65 at their 50th reunion, the Plaza of Heroes, where we are now located, was constructed to honor those who exhibited deeds of value during the conflict. Directly behind me is the Sejohn Sculpture and Medal of Honor Award that Captain Sejohn got. Along the wall to your left are the plaques for the Air Force Cross, with 16 individual plaques that will tell the story behind the award. The Silver Star is also on that wall, and as well as the Distinguished Flying Cross to over 2,100 graduates, the Air Medal to over 3,200 graduates, and the Purple Heart awarded to over 280 graduates. The class of 65 funded the bronze sculpture of Lance Sejohn, the Medal of Honor awardee, completing and depicting his conditions in the rugged karst after election from his F-4, his ejection from the F-4, and before being captured and transported to Hanoi, where he later died. The code of conduct in effect at the time is inscribed behind Captain Sejohn's statue, which we all had to live by at the time. The Plaza of Heroes was dedicated in November 2015. General Mark Welsh III, class of 76, and the then current Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force officiated at this event. I believe it is accurate to say that this entire facility, funded by 4 different classes, epitomizes the words of General Robert E. Lee, who said, "Duty then is subliminous word in the English language. You should go do your duty at all times and all things. You can never do more, should you never do less." To that end, it is time for me to shut up and bring Major General Tom Griffiths to the podium. Thank you.
I'm sorry, some of you can't see me back there because the podium is so high, but you're lucky. How's the volume back there now? Good, good, okay. Well, thank you all for being here. If the wind blows these things away, I would just add a little bit. And I'll probably end up repeating half a dozen things that Ed just said because they're so important and need to be reiterated. But as we dedicate this plaque today to these 13 very special heroes that you see the names of up here, I'm honored beyond words just to be standing here representing the hundreds of pilots that Ed talked about in the Super Sabre Society that we all flew the F-100 and defended our country for over 40 years. Thank you, General Latendra, Dean, General Moga, Com, for being here today. And a very special welcome to these cadet leaders that you see seated back here in their fatigues. And many of us know what you're going through this past couple of weeks. And you've only got a couple more days before these young, I call them plebes, show up and walk across the terrazzo and fall into your care. And I admire you. I wish I could do it again with you. Thank you for doing it. We have another very special guest with us here today, Colonel P.K. Robinson, class of 1962, the Air Force Academy. P.K. had his first combat tour in Vietnam flying F-100s in 67 and 68 out of a place that I'm very familiar with, Bien Hoa. And that wasn't good enough for P.K. He had to volunteer to go back and fly as a Mistyfac to Phuket. And then he finishes his tour as a Mistyfac at Phuket. And you heard Eddie mention Mistyfac 2 or 3 times. And for those of you in the audience that aren't familiar with the term Mistyfac, please at the reception have PK and Don, and I think we've got one other Mistyfac in here. Yeah, there he is. Back up here, Charlie. Just feel free to share your thoughts about Mistyfac to the members of the audience that aren't familiar with it. I will just say that it became one of the highest risk missions that we flew in Southeast Asia. And of course, that again wasn't enough for PK. He volunteers to go back again flying the F-4 about 4 years later. And PK was shot down over North Vietnam, captured, and went to prison. He served as a POW for 270 days, released in March of 1973. After that, PK served in key leadership positions in the Air Force for 15 years. PK, thank you so much for being here with us today. Just to be standing here in this beautiful Memorial Plaza, and we've all been relishing in it. I had to come out here yesterday just to see and touch and feel, because I hadn't seen it since I was here before. I have such a wonderful feeling of pride, but at the same time, an immense feeling of sorrow. Very mixed, but very true. And I'm extremely proud to have flown with, served with, many Air Force Academy graduates. Unfortunately, many of names are on plaques throughout this Memorial Plaza. And we all sincerely regret the losses of these outstanding men. We have to wonder what many of them would have achieved, what they would have contributed to this country. Excuse me, that's going to happen to me a couple of times today. If they hadn't sacrificed their lives for this country. But one thing positive, we all got to remember, they all died doing what they loved. They all died doing what they volunteered for. And they all died doing what they were committed to. And I can think of no better tribute than that. President Coolidge once said it eloquently, "The nation which forgets its offenders will itself be forgotten." Today we're here to remember and pay tribute to those who went in harm's way. At this point, I've got to take time, Ed already did, but I want to reiterate, the man who's been the brains and energy behind this plaque for almost 2 years. I know he doesn't want the praise. He'll beat the heck out of me after this is over, but that's happened before. And I've got to say, Roger, please stand, and thank you very much. Roger, class of 1967, Air Force Academy, flew the F-100 in Vietnam, and Roger and I flew a couple of airplanes together after that. This would not have been possible without your leadership, Roger. And Shawnee, seated behind Roger, thank you, and so glad you're here today. As we look at the names on this F-100 Super Sabre plaque, I'd like to add a few comments to expand on who they were and what they did. I'll start with the eldest of the group, Captain Mike Hyde, class of 1960. We're extremely pleased that his daughter, Kristen, her husband, Russell Shaw, are with us today. Thank you again. Mike had the opportunity to play professional baseball with the Chicago Cubs, but chose the Air Force Academy instead, and we're sure glad he did. Obviously, he was heavily influenced by his father, a World War II flight instructor, but Mike loved speed. He loved fast cars, he loved fast airplanes, and didn't a lot of us. While stationed in the United Kingdom following pilot training, Mike and his wife Ann enjoyed traveling all over Europe. Unfortunately, Mike died in December 1966 when his aircraft was hit by enemy fire while flying a close air support mission, and you'll hear that term a couple of times today too, in Bien Hoa province. Mike left behind his wife, 2 young daughters, Kristen and Gina. His remains were recovered in 1990, and he's buried here at the Academy. Class of 1962 lost 4 members flying the F-100 in Vietnam. First loss from the class was Lieutenant Don Watson on July 31st, 1965. Don was bombing a target just north of Saigon. When he was hit, his F-100 exploded. He had absolutely no chance to eject. Don grew up in Tripoli, Wisconsin. He was not married. He is also buried here at the Academy. The second loss for the class of 62 came just 4 months later. Lieutenant Don Hauschild served as an enlisted man prior to coming to the Academy. He was an outstanding student in law. He excelled in pilot training, as most of these guys did, and selected the F-100 as their airplane after pilot training. He was flying a close air support mission just northeast of Bien Hoa when he was hit by small arms fire and crashed. John was from Chicago, Illinois. He was not married. He is buried here at the Air Force Academy. The third member of the class of 62 to be killed was Captain Larry Moore. He was also performing a close air support mission south of Saigon on July 12th, 1967. Larry was hit by automatic weapons fire. His F-100 caught fire and he crashed. Larry was from Huntington, Oregon. He was married to Carolyn. They had a son, Michael, and a daughter, Beth. Larry is buried here at the Air Force Academy. The fourth member of the class of 1962 to die in Vietnam was Captain Jim Brinkman. He was also lost flying a close air support mission northwest of Saigon in War Zone Charlie on April 1st, 1968. And I hope that term, War Zone Charlie, hits true with a lot of you. It became known as one of the most dangerous areas in Vietnam for the duration of the war. Jim was from Memphis, Tennessee, and New Orleans. He was not married, and he is buried here at the Air Force Academy. The class of 1963 lost 3 men flying the F-100 in Vietnam. The first member of the class of 63 to die in Vietnam flying the Super Sabre was First Lieutenant John Scoro. At the Academy, he was captain of the fencing team and an All-American. The award each year to the best fencer here at the Academy is named after John. John was attacking a target north of Phuket, September 13, 1966, when his F-100 was hit and crashed. John was from Gary, Indiana. He was married to Betty. John is buried here at the Air Force Academy. The second member of the class of 1963 who was killed was Captain Clarence Joe Himmel. Joe's son Joe and his wife Kelly are with us here today. Thank you all so much for being here. Joe was known as Boo Boo here at the Academy. Joe was an outstanding football player and lacrosse player. On October 21st, 1967, his F-100 was hit while on a mission 30 miles southeast of Da Nang. You'll hear that word again. The aircraft then flew low out over the ocean, and the FAC reported a fireball. It was suspected Joe was wounded and had no chance to communicate or eject. His body was never recovered. Joe was married to Jane, and they had 2 sons, Clarence, Joe Jr., and Jeffrey. Joe was born and raised in the Ozarks. According to his wife and sons, his priorities were faith, family, and flying. He also had aspirations of becoming a test pilot and an astronaut. Joe is memorialized here at the Academy. The last member of the class of '63 to die flying the F-100 Vietnam was Captain Tom Clark. On February 8, 1969, while on a mission to destroy an anti-aircraft gun position on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, what a mission, near Ban Cape, Laos, his F-100 Super Sabre was hit by 23 millimeter ground fire, and he crashed before he was able to get out of the airplane. Tom's remains were not recovered until October 2009. He had been posthumously promoted to major. Tom was from Emporia, Pennsylvania, married to his high school sweetheart, Kathleen. He's buried in Emporia, Pennsylvania. Major Laurent Lee Gorley was the only loss in the class of '66. Lee died on August 9, 1969, while flying as a Misty Pack. Lee's sister, Alzine, his brother, Fred's wife, Chris, are with us today. It is so nice all of you could be here, all family members. Thank you. Lee was a country boy. Grew up on a farm near a small town in Iowa. He was a distinguished graduate of the Air Force Academy and attended Purdue after graduation, obtaining an MS degree in astronautics. At pilot training, Lee was the outstanding graduate and again selected the F-100 for his first flying assignment. All these men volunteers. Lee was serious about his role as a pilot, fully understood the high levels of risk involved when he volunteered for the Misty Pack role. Lee's remains were returned in December 2011, were not identified until August 2012. He's buried next to his father in Iowa. I must mention that Lee's brother, Fred, also flew combat missions in Southeast Asia in the F-4 after Lee was killed. Class of 1968 lost 2 members in Vietnam. I'm going to have a tough time getting through this one. Very tragic accident. Lieutenant Mike Caudill, Lieutenant Charlie Collenberg, both of the class of '68 were passengers on a C-123 en route to Cam Ranh Bay on November 29, 1970, where they were to board a freedom flight back to the United States. They had completed their tours of duty flying the F-100 when the C-123 they were in crashed in weather, killing 16 of the 18 aboard. Mike was on the dean's list here at the Air Force Academy all 4 years and was also on the football and track team. He was an excellent F-100 pilot. Charlie was an outstanding cadet and an outstanding fighter pilot. He will always be remembered for his enthusiasm, vigor, and dedication. I knew Charlie Collenberg very well at Tui Wa. Most of us at Tui Wa had completed our tours and flown back in the F-100 to England Air Force Base, Louisiana. Charlie and about 20 others went to Phan Rang to complete their tours for the next 2 or 3 months. And the day Mike and Charlie were killed, England Air Force Base shut down. We were shocked. We expected to see them home in about 3 days. Two F-100 pilots, Hayden Lockhart, Jr., class of 61, and Guy Gruters, class of 1964, names are on this plaque also, and rightly so. Like P.K. Robinson, both were POWs held in various camps in North Vietnam. Hayden was the first Air Force Academy graduate to become a POW very early on in the war. He was shot down and captured March 2nd, 1965, and released February 12th, 1973. Try to comprehend that. Guy became a POW in December 1967 and was released in March of 1973. Now you heard Ed Bracken speak earlier about Captain Lance Saigon, prisoner of war and Medal of Honor recipient. Captain Guy Gruters was also shot down flying as a Misty Fact and became Lance's roommate. Guy cared for Lance every day until Lance succumbed to wounds and torture and died. Guy, his testimony following his release as a POW was a key factor in Lance Saigon being awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. All these men died doing something they loved and for a country that they were proud to serve. Maybe that provides solace for those left behind. Family, friends, classmates, fellow pilots. As noted on your brochure, all gave some gave all. It captures the essence of all of us who served in Southeast Asia, especially the 11 graduates who did not return. It's now time to unveil our F-100 Super Sabre plaque.
We toast our hardy comrades who have fallen from the skies and were gently caught by God's hand to be with him on high, to dwell among the soaring clouds they have known so well before, from victory roll to tail chase at heaven's door. As we fly among them there, we're sure to heed their plea to take care, my friend, watch your six, and do one more roll for me. And that was written by Commander Jerry Coffey in Illinois in 1968. And now if you'll turn to the wall, and those of you that are close may want to move back a little bit so that you can see the plaque unveiling from Tom.